Coming up today, North Korea puts its frontline military units onto a wartime state after the two Koreas exchanged artillery fire. South Korea warns it will retaliate strongly to any provocations or attacks. The international community is calling for both sides to exercise restraint as tensions soar on the Korean peninsula. The United States reiterates that it's fully committed to defending South Korea. Plus, South Korean stocks nosedive amid concerns over the heightened tensions. The country's main bourse, the benchmark KOSPI, dipped below 1,860 in trading this morning. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Friday, the 21st of August. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. And we start with the sharp uptick in tensions between the two Koreas after Thursday's exchange of artillery fire across the border. Emergency meetings have been held in Seoul and Pyongyang, and the militaries of both Koreas are on high alert. Tensions have been bubbling since earlier this month when landmine explosions injured two South Korean troops. For the latest details on this fluid situation, we connect live to our Kim Hyun-bin at the Ministry of National Defense in Seoul. Hyun-bin.
Mark, tensions are at their highest point in a few years, with both countries' militaries currently on the highest state of alert. South Korea put its troops on full readiness on Thursday, and North Korea's state broadcasters reported earlier today that the North had followed suit. There are reports North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has declared a quasi-state of war and has ordered his chief commanders to join frontline troops to prepare for military operations. North Korea is to be on full combat mode starting 5 p.m. today, and currently the North Korean troops are armed and ready.
And the timing of this sudden escalation is important and worthy of note, as it comes as South Korea and the United States are holding one of their biggest annual joint military exercises. How are the two allies cooperating and coordinating at this time?
Well, a South Korean military official says the two countries are currently working under the so-called ROK-US counter-provocation plan. Now, this means South Korea's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Che and U.S. Forces Commander Curtis Scaparrotti are sharing military intelligence in real time. The plan, which was adopted a couple years ago, jointly allows the U.S. to help the South during local provocations. In fact, this is the first time in almost 40 years that Seoul and Washington are sharing joint operations system in real time. As you mentioned, the two countries are engaged in the Ulchi Freedom Guardian exercises, drills the North regularly condemns, accusing them of being a rehearsal for war. The U.S. has brought over state-of-the-art weaponry for the exercise, including A-10 bombers and Bradley tanks. South Korea has employed its F-15s and Aegis destroyers for the drills.
Yeah, there is a lot of serious military hardware in the area at the moment, and we hear that South Korea's defense ministry has been in contact with Pyongyang. Tell us about that.
That's right. South Korea's defense ministry sent a message to Pyongyang through the inter-Korean military communication line just a few hours ago. Now, it stated that the recent landmine explosion at the DMZ were a clear violation of the Armistice Agreement and the Non-Aggression Pact. It also emphasized that if North Korea launches another provocation, Seoul and Washington will strongly retaliate, as is their right under self-defense. And the fault will be laid squarely at the feet of North Korea.
And Hyun-bin, given the level of tensions at the moment, is Seoul still blasting the propaganda broadcasts across the border?
Well, South Korea is refusing to be told what to do by North Korea, and Seoul assumed the broadcast in the early hours on Friday morning, 1 a.m. Korea time to be exact. South Korea's frontline military units are on their highest alert, known as Shindoke 1. It means troops are in full military gear with live ammo and are awaiting orders. So a clear indication there of how
Well, sorry about that. We appear to have some technical difficulties there, but we will connect to Kim Hyun-bin again, our Defence Ministry correspondent, during our later newscasts in the day. Now, residents in Gangwon-do province near the inter-Korean border have been evacuated to outside the civilian control line in preparation for possible larger-scale evacuations. The province is inspecting its emergency shelters. Now, tourist destinations like the Cheolwon Peace Observatory and the DMZ Museum have been closed and their staff pulled out to a safer location. Incheon Maritime Police have put a stop to all commercial fishing in waters around Yeonpyeong-do and Gangwon-do Islands, as well as in nearby areas. Now, ferries in and out of Yeonpyeong-do remain in service, but those passing by army bases have been restricted to certain safety channels. South Korea's rival parties held respective emergency meetings this morning and were unified in their denouncement of Pyongyang's military provocations. However, the parties have differing opinions on how to resolve the crisis. Ruling Saenuri Party leader Kim Moo-sung said prompt and stern punishment was required to maintain the South's security. He added that it would take strong determination to end the vicious cycle of Pyongyang's provocations. Kim also urged the military to be on full alert. The leader of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, Moon Jae-in, is urging Seoul to propose unconditional high-level talks with North Korea. He said the South Korean government needs to open all possible channels to facilitate inter-Korean discussions. President Park Geunhye, who is scheduled to visit the southeastern cities of Daegu and Gwangju today, has called off all her plans to attend to the security situation following the sharp uptick in inter-Korean tensions over the last 24 hours or so. Her office says President Park has no official schedule for the day and will keep an eye on the North's moves while standing by her position to sternly respond to further provocations by Pyongyang. The president will also be briefed on the South Korean military's readiness and seek countermeasures where necessary. After her top security advisor reported on the North's initial provocation, President Park for the first time presided over an emergency meeting of the National Security Council Standing Committee on Thursday night. The international community has expressed concern over the rapid escalation in inter-Korean tensions and is calling for both sides to keep cool heads. China says it wants Seoul and Pyongyang to resolve their differences through dialogue. Russia has urged all sides to refrain from actions that could worsen the situation. And for more on the rest of the global reaction, Connie Kim reports.
The United Nations on Thursday said it is keeping a close watch on escalating inter-Korean tensions following North Korea's shelling of South Korea's loudspeakers on the border.
We can say on the exchange of artillery fire that we saw reports of today is that we are closely following the developments with serious concern, and we will revert as the situation evolves.
The U.S. echoed the UN's response. The U.S. State Department spokesman John Kirby called on Pyongyang to refrain from rhetoric threatening regional peace. He added Washington remains steadfast in its commitment to defending the peninsula and will continue to work closely with Seoul. The U.S. Defense Department also said it is closely monitoring the situation on the Korean peninsula and will take prudent measures to ensure the well-being of U.S. personnel and families. The shelling coincides with the joint South Korea-U.S. military exercise taking place on the Korean peninsula. It's been reported North Korea has officially expressed its objection to the drill. Japanese Kyodo News reported Friday that North Korean ambassador to the UN Cha Sung-nam sent a letter to Nigeria, which holds UN Security Council presidency, calling for an emergency meeting to discuss joint exercise. Cha accused the joint drills of threatening peace and security in the Northeast Asia region and said the North will take all necessary measures to deter U.S. nuclear provocations. The letter, sent a day before the shelling, did not include any mention of attacking South Korean soldiers. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
So how will this latest escalation in tensions take a toll on cooperation between the two Koreas? Let's go live to our Hwang Sang-hee, who's standing by the Unification Ministry in Seoul. Sang-hee, we understand the ministry has restricted entry of South Koreans working at the joint Kaesong Industrial Complex.
That's right, Mark. The Unification Ministry has labeled the current situation as very serious and is limiting the number of South Korean nationals in North Korea to ensure their safety. The ministry is only allowing South Korean businessmen to make day trips, only those who are directly involved in the operations of the Kaesong Industrial Complex. So other South Korean nationals, such as people working as subcontractors, will not be allowed to cross the border to the factory zone for the time being. Now, the Kaesong Industrial Complex is virtually the last remaining form of inter-Korean cooperation, and it often suffers whenever there is a rise in tensions between the two Koreas. North Korea has a history of detaining South Korean workers and unilaterally shutting down the complex, which is what happened 2 years ago when operations were suspended for 5 months. But for now, it is business as usual at the complex. The ministry confirmed that there have been no safety issues thus far concerning South Korean workers entering the complex, and added it has taken measures to ensure their safety. However, it is keeping a close eye on developments and considering additional measures if needed. This has been Hwang Sang-hee reporting live from the Unification Ministry in Seoul.
Now, escalating tensions on the Korean peninsula are adding volatility to the local markets that are already hit by concerns about the global economy. Seoul shares began trading more than 2% lower on this Friday on heightened geopolitical risk, as well as deep losses in offshore markets. As of 11:50 a.m. Korea time, about 20 minutes ago, the benchmark KOSPI was trading at 1,881.56. That's down more than 1.7%, but recovering from a session low of 1856.9. South Korea's financial authorities are calling for calm, however, pledging to help stabilize the markets if needed. Around the world, global markets ended lower overnight on renewed fears over the health of the global economy. Wall Street was hammered, with the S&P 500 ending at a more than 6-month low and the Dow Jones Industrial Average closing at 16,990, the lowest level since October. The Nasdaq also retreated 2.8%. European markets also closed in the red, extending their recent losses. Now, in other news, the world's climate scientists are sweating over new data that shows the Earth broke new heat records in July. The figures seem to confirm what many of us already suspected, that man-made global warming is real. Son Jung-in has the details.
The latest report from the U.S.-based National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration shows that Earth's average temperature across land and sea surfaces last month was 16.61 degrees Celsius. That's 0.81 degrees Celsius above the 20th century average, making it the hottest July since records started being recorded in 1880. Last month's land temperatures were the 6th warmest recorded in July. Sea surface temperatures, however, were the hottest on record. Some regions saw unusually hot weather during the period, including Africa, which saw its 2nd hottest July ever. South America, parts of Southern Europe, Central Asia, and the far western United States reported all-time record warmth. The new figures confirm scientists' concerns about the troubling new trend of rising global temperatures. Studies are ongoing about what impact the warming will have on Earth in the years and decades to come. Experts say it's quite likely 2015 will end up being the hottest year on record, beating the previous record set last year, with a boost this year from a combination of human activity and an El Niño warming of the Pacific Ocean. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
A new study has shown that Koreans will live for an average of at least 20 more years after retirement. Men who are 60 years old this year will live about 23 more years to 83, and women of the same age to about 88 years old. Now, this is according to a report by the National Pension Research Institute, which needs an accurate figure for the nation's pension system. In 2012, the average life expectancy of Koreans was 81.3 years. With the rapidly aging population, the government has come up with financial programs for people in their 80s and older, but few have proven effective thus far. By 2030, it's projected that men in Korea will live to an average age of 87 and women to nearly 92. Now, before we go, just an update on the current situation, considering we did have that slight technical difficulty at the start of the newscast. Both Korea's militaries are on the highest state of alert at the moment since the tensions ramped up very heavily. This all kicked off, of course, following Thursday's artillery exchange of fire across the border. North Korea has given South Korea until 5 p.m. Saturday Korea time to turn off loudspeakers. Otherwise, it's said it will launch some kind of unspecified military provocation. As we heard in our report, South Korea and the US have vowed to respond very firmly if that were to happen. Of course, we will keep you fully updated on the situation at the border between South and North Korea throughout the day. But until then, that is all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good weekend. Goodbye.